Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, Maria. Thank you for your kind remarks. It's great to be back in a group of serial activists. Thank you for all that you do. And, you know, as the father of 2 daughters, it's great to be speaking at the women's luncheon. I spoke to my middle daughter this morning. She said, "What are you doing today, Dad?" "I'm speaking at the women's luncheon." And she said, "Dad, you're not a woman." And I said, "You know what? I'm surrounded by strong women. And I know that I'm going to be with a lot of strong women." So thank you for all you do, because we know, and President Obama knows, and everybody in this room knows, that when women succeed, America succeeds. When women succeed, the middle class succeeds. And when women succeed, families succeed. And I want to say thank you for having me back at LULAC. This is not my first rodeo with you. Been in a lot of foxholes with you, and I'll get in every foxhole I can, because you have such tremendous leadership, and you have been so engaged, whether it's voting, whether it's desegregation, whether it's access to health care, whether it's everything that is all about making America the land of opportunity. You have been there in the front lines, and I want to say thank you. You've always been in the business of building bridges instead of walls. You have always embraced the notion, and I think if I had to think about one thing that I've loved the most about working with you at LULAC, you have always embraced the notion that our country thrives because of our diversity and not despite our diversity. So thank you for everything that you do. And I can't help, when I think about the work that you do and the stories that you bring to the table, I can't help but think of my own family story. And as you well know, my folks came from the Dominican Republic. They ended up settling in Buffalo, New York. They settled there because the weather was very similar to DR. And I think they got the wrong memo on that. But actually, the reality is they came to America to flee a repressive regime. And my maternal grandfather was actually the Dominican ambassador to the United States. And he spoke out against the murderous dictator Trujillo, and he was declared non grata. And so, to my parents and so many of yours, America was at the same time a safe harbor and a land of opportunity, a country that offered both protection and promise. America, I have learned, and my parents taught me this, isn't simply a destination, but it is also a journey to form that more perfect union. And they were honored to be part of that journey. My mother was one of 9, and her brothers served with distinction in World War II while they were legal immigrants. I heard the discussions about the work you're doing on behalf of veterans, and you know that legal immigrants have been serving this nation with distinction since the Revolutionary War, and we should be thanking them. And my father served in the U.S. Army with pride, and he went on to devote his entire career to public service, going from the Army to the VA hospital in Buffalo, New York, where he worked from the late 50s until the day he died in 1974. And so I am so proud of my family's history. I'm proud to call myself Buffalo-Minican, Buffalo roots, a great Union town, and proud to be of Dominican heritage. And I am so proud, as I said to you, for the partnership that we've had. And I come to you this afternoon, my friends, with unrelenting optimism. And I'll tell you why I'm optimistic. Because I go around the country, I make house calls in this job, and I see the remarkable things that people are doing. I see the odds that they overcome day in and day out. And I'm not the only one who has optimism, because poll after poll confirms that Latinos are among the most optimistic in America. And the people that I meet, as I noted, work day in and day out for a brighter future, and they are the folks who fuel my optimism. And the data that we see about the progress that this administration and this nation has made recovering from the Great Recession also fuels my optimism, because I know there's this Eeyore caucus out there, a group. You remember Eeyore, the donkey from Winnie the Pooh? His mother was Debbie Downer. There's a bit of an Eeyore caucus out there who wants you to think that, the Great Recession, we haven't accomplished a thing. But the reality is there were more than 2 million jobs lost in the 3 months before this president took office. And the auto industry was on life support. And there were some who were saying, pull the plug. First-time weekly unemployment claims when the president took office were roughly 600,000 per week. And you look at where we have come now. We've now seen almost 70 months straight of job growth to the tune of 14.8 million jobs. That is progress, my friends. Weekly claims for unemployment have now been below 300,000 for 71 weeks in a row. The last time that happened was 1973. That's the last time that happened. The unemployment rate was 10% in the depths of the Great Recession. Now it's under 5%. And we're seeing that Latinos are making real progress. The Latino unemployment rate, which had reached 13% during the Great Recession, is now down to 5.8%. From 2012 to 2014, the number of Latinos living in poverty fell by roughly 1 million. Since 2000, the Latino high school dropout rate has been cut in half. Since 2008, the rate of college enrollment among young Latinos has risen by 9 percentage points, so that nearly 35% of young Latinos are now attending college. That is real progress, my friends. More work to do, but thanks to you, that is real progress. And thanks to the president's leadership and the passage of the Affordable Care Act, we've been able to help 4 million Latino adults get coverage. A group that once had the uninsured rate of over 40% has seen that rate drop by over 11 percentage points, thanks to you. And so we have made tremendous progress, my friends, but make no mistake about it, we have a significant amount of unfinished business when it comes to building an economy that works for everyone. The specific unfinished business is we need to make sure that the wind that's at our back results in shared prosperity for everyone and not simply prosperity for a few at the top. We got to make sure that the rising tide lifts all the boats and not simply the yachts. And I know too many people who are in a dinghy, and that dinghy's taken in water. And I know too many other people who are in the water, and they can't even get to that dinghy. So make no mistake about it, we have unfinished business. And we have two dimensions of unfinished business. We must fortify the infrastructure of economic opportunity, and we must fortify the infrastructure of democracy. And LULAC has been involved in both, and I want to say thank you. In terms of the infrastructure of economic opportunity, we must continue to work hard to raise wages. We've been doing our best at the Department of Labor. We recently issued an overtime rule, because if you work extra, you should be paid extra. And I meet too many people working 70 hours a week who are in effect only getting paid for 40 hours a week. That's not fair. The president said, fix it, and fix it we did. We must, and we need your help on this, we must raise the federal minimum wage, because nobody who works a full-time job in this country should have to live in poverty. I meet way too many people, way too many people who are working a 40, 50-hour week, and they're getting their food at the food pantry. And this should not be a partisan issue. In 4 states in 2014, Arkansas, Alaska, South Dakota, Nebraska, voters were asked, should they raise the state minimum wage? And in every single one of those states, overwhelmingly they said yes, because there is an understanding, regardless of where you live, regardless of your political affiliation, there's an understanding that $7.25 an hour just ain't enough to feed your family. And we know that. But unfortunately, there are some Republicans in Congress who haven't gotten that memo. And we're going to continue to fight on that, but we need your help. And we're going to continue to fight and work with states who are raising their wages. The fight for 15 is not simply a fight for higher wages. It's a fight for fairness. It's a fight for opportunity. It's a fight for worker voice. And when they passed the minimum wage in California, you know who benefited the most from the $15 minimum wage? It was Latinos. And so I say thank you to all of you in California who work so hard. And we need your help to fortify other elements of economic opportunity. We are the only nation in the industrialized planet that doesn't have some form of federal paid leave. And you know what? That is an abomination. Because if we believe in family values, the most important family value is time spent with your family. And I meet too many people who have to make the unconscionable choice between the family that they love and the job that they need. I met a woman who gave birth via C-section and had to go back to work 3 weeks later because she couldn't afford not to. That's wrong. We can do better. I once said that the United States and Papua New Guinea are the only two industrialized nations on the planet that don't have some form of paid leave. And then someone from Papua New Guinea came up to me afterward and said, they're in the process of fixing that. Stop dissing Papua New Guinea. So I want to apologize to the good people of Papua New Guinea because we are regrettably alone on this island of not having passed paid leave. Conservative and progressive ruling governments around the world recognize the importance of paid leave, not only for women, but for families. And we need your help in this area. And I've met with so many business leaders who get it, and they're already doing it. But you shouldn't have to win the boss lottery to get access to paid leave. And you shouldn't have to win the geographic lottery to get access to a decent wage or paid leave. And that's what's happening in this country. So we need your help to build the access to economic opportunity and to make sure we complete the unfinished business. And the unfinished business of comprehensive immigration reform is something that we need your help on some more. You've always been there for us. And I'm telling you something, folks. Comprehensive immigration reform is not an if question, it is a when question. And I am confident that with your help, that when will be 2017. Because we need to do this now. It's an economic imperative. It's a moral imperative. It's a national security imperative. And it will be a reality. I have no doubt about it. And I'm so proud to have worked for this president who's been fighting for dreamers, fighting for access to opportunity for immigrants, and we need your continued help. But we also need your help, as I mentioned earlier, to help fortify the infrastructure of democracy. I have the great privilege now of working at the Department of Labor, and before that, I had the great privilege of working at the Department of Justice, heading up the Civil Rights Division. My former boss and good friend Eric Holder often said that the Civil Rights Division is the crown jewel of the Department of Justice. And it's not the people who are the crown jewels, it's the laws that we enforce at the Civil Rights Division that are the crown jewels. Those are the laws that really stand for our basic values as a nation. And we need your help because you know what? When I was there, I had so many cases that we were involved in that belonged in the history books, not in the front pages of newspapers. We dealt with the prosecution in Shenandoah, Pennsylvania, of two men who beat Luis Ramirez to death simply because he was Latino. That's wrong. That doesn't belong in the newspapers today. That belongs in our history books. And you were so helpful in making sure that those perpetrators were brought to justice. You were very helpful in making sure that we held Sheriff Joe Arpaio accountable as well. Because you know what? When you seek to divide communities rather than unite communities, you do no service to those communities. And that is what he did. Building the atmosphere of trust, distrust. And that was why we had to sue him. So I want to say thank you to you for all of your help. I want to say thank you for your help in enforcing the Voting Rights Act and supporting our efforts to challenge voter ID laws that you know and I know and everyone else knows were passed for one simple purpose: to make it more difficult for African Americans and Latinos to vote. That's why they were passed, and that's why we will continue to take action. Because you know what? Let's have a pitched debate about who we are as a nation. Let's debate those issues, but let's not make it harder for eligible people who are our perceived opponents to go to the ballot box. That's quintessentially un-American, and that is why we will continue to fight, and we need your help. And we need your help to continue this journey to make sure that we work with police departments so that they can enjoy the respect of the community and do their job. I spent almost a dozen years working on this issue, and I'm here to tell you, my friends, the most important currency that a police officer has is the trust of the community. Chief Brown in Dallas is a hero to me, because you know what? He is out there every single day making sure that his community is safe, and he enjoys the trust of his community. And he understands more than just about anyone that trust is the main currency. And as we have these conversations about policing in America, it is important to appreciate the various perspectives, because I have spent so much time in my career at the Department of Justice involved in cases where African American and Latino young people were shot to death by the police, and the parents asked the same question: was this preventable? And in all too many circumstances, the answer was yes. And that is why it's so important for us to stop talking past each other, to create that space for not only meaningful dialogue, but meaningful action. And we need to make sure that we don't ask the wrong questions, because all too frequently during challenging times like today, we ask the wrong question. It's not, are you on the side of the police or are you on the side of the community? That's a false choice, my friends. We can do both. We will do both. We will work together. We will create the sense of American values, because you know what? What's always made America great is the sense that we're all in this together, and what unites us is far greater than what divides us. That blowing out your neighbor's candle doesn't make your candle shine any brighter, and that we all succeed only when we all succeed. I have seen police departments that have been able to transform themselves, and they do so by working together with communities. I know it can be done, but I also know that organizations like LULAC are indispensable in those efforts, and so we need you to continue to be involved. And that's where I want to end, folks, because we need your help on a host of issues, and I need your help moving forward. And the first thing we need your help on is we need you to continue to remind people in your communities and across the nation of our history as a nation, because we're confronting some troubling headwinds around America, headwinds of intolerance that we have seen before. And that's what I need you to do, is remind people of our history. This is not the first time. You look at the Know Nothing movement in America in the mid-19th century. It was an anti-immigrant, it was an anti-Catholic movement. And we saw that, and you know what? That movement faded. It faded because there were people like you who said, this does not represent America. And in the mid-20th century, you look at what happened in the McCarthy era. Joe McCarthy was ultimately censured because he didn't stand for American values. And that brings me to one of my favorite books. And it's a book by Walter Isaacson. It's a biography of a pretty important guy named Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein, Walter Isaacson wrote a letter to his son during the height of the McCarthy era. Albert Einstein had emigrated to flee Nazi Germany to the United States, and he wrote a letter in the height of the McCarthy era to his son saying, I am concerned about the direction of America. I'm seeing what's happening here mirror what happened in Nazi Germany. And then a time later, after Joe McCarthy had been censured and relegated to the dustbin of history, he wrote another letter to his son and said, America is a remarkable place. There's this gyroscope out there. And just when you think that gyroscope is going to spin out of control, it comes back to earth. It rights itself. What a remarkable country. Well, my friends, the gyroscope is not a piece of technology. The gyroscope is you. The gyroscope is what the president said last year in Selma, Alabama, when he said the most important word in a democracy is the single two-letter word we. When we marshal the collective power of we pass a Voting Rights Act, we pass a Civil Rights Act, we pass the Americans with Disabilities Act, we pass the Hate Crimes Prevention Act, we pass so many other pieces of legislation that bring us together. So we need your help to marshal the collective power of we, the values that bring us together as a nation, remembering that somos los Estados Unidos, no somos los Estados divididos. Remember that now, remember that forever. Thank you very much, and have a great conference.